watching Channel 20 TV. Be with Channel 20 and let us make things better together.
Dear viewers, today we'd like to welcome you having our new show with the new guest, and today we have got Dr. Nirmal K. Ganguly. He is one of the pioneer in terms of medical science and in Bangladesh, India, and also in different parts of the world. You may know and aware of this gentleman. He is our pride. He is the pride in medical science indeed. So we would like to talk to him regarding COVID and also upcoming hopes that we are having in terms of vaccination. Let us welcome Dr. Nirmal K. Ganguly. Hello, sir. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Thank you, sir, for joining us. We'd like to ask you first, how's your experience in COVID-19? If I would like to start from the beginning of 2020, what's your assessment for the last year?
My assessment from last year is this, that COVID was an unexpected pandemic. We had SARS-1 and it caused problems in certain areas. India was spared. India didn't have really except one, no confirmed cases. But COVID-19 really spread around the world globally. And for two reasons. The travel around the world has really increased, and so if anybody is infected at any part of the world, he is going to carry the infection to other countries. And some of the countries where those who travel more, they spread it more. Like at this given moment, if you see, majority of the infection, whether it was SARS, whether it is COVID, whether it was H1N1, except MERS, majority of this infection have started from China. Because China, the space between animals and humans is very contracted. Sometimes it starts from Hong Kong, which are very crowded, and it spreads to other countries through the travel of the citizens there. Chinese travel now are one of the most prolific travelers around the globe, and they spend money also, so they are very attractive. So, this is something which happened, but it is not that big killer like other diseases. Like road traffic accident, like cardiovascular disease. So there are more fatal diseases and fatal infections around the world. The fatality has escaped few countries which are island countries or isolation. They could isolate themselves, like Australia, New Zealand, and some other countries. And then unexpectedly, some other countries like Serbia, Latvia, Israel, and others, they have also been able to control, whether they're in Europe or whether they're in Asia, they have been able to control it. And India, etc., being very densely populated, and are little better off at this given time. But if you take the entire population is 1.3 billion population, your statistics are little misleading, because it is essentially killer of the elderly population around the globe. And some of the elderly populations are at the moment do not exist. They are non-people. So they are dying at home, they are dying of neglect, they are dying of diseases. So if we really do the different kind of statistics, the people are affected. So one of the things which in my opinion hasn't worked is very draconian measures anywhere in the world. Like, if you don't let humans to be humans, the things spread because they don't follow the things. And very draconian lockdowns, which doesn't allow normal social interactions, also do not control COVID-19. You need to find out methods in which, as far as possible, normal social interactions can occur. Along with the mask wearing and social distancing and other. Too much social distancing works, but if it hits economy and if it makes you leads to starvation, it really doesn't work that much. So somewhere, wherever such things have happened, you found that the virus has spread more, and or there have been economic devastation. The another point which is very important is this, that different countries did different experimentation. Sweden, etc., allowed herd immunity to go. Iceland sequenced all its citizens and every virus which came up. And when you closed borders, how much it was effective, one doesn't know. But the border closing happened from time to time, but whether it was very effective or not, we need to know. So one of the things which I propose, that looking at the experiences, looking at that how in a poverty-ridden country where 700 or 800 million population are very poor and 300 million populations are very rich, how do we really handle it by creating preserving the social norms, preserving the jobs of the people and the livelihood of people, and controlling the infection effectively. And few more things are very, very important, that we really, worldwide, we really couldn't take, except South Korea, Taiwan and others, we couldn't take the testing and tracking very effectively. It really got delayed, and it was not very, very effective. Another thing which we couldn't do, except UK and other places, we really couldn't really sequence the viruses as effectively as they should be sequenced, so that we can track mutations and take appropriate measures. We also did another mistake, that the relationship of the scientists, modelers and epidemiologists, and that cohesion and coordination was not very, very fruitful. And there were products which might have worked, but they were not available globally, like the cocktail of monoclonal antibodies of Regeneron and Eli Lilly. They were available to some very influential presidents or politicians, but was not available to general people, and it is not going to be available. There was a plethora of repurposed drugs and emergency authorization, but ultimately there were so many denials. They were so quick in coming into fruition that people didn't know that which will be the standard of care. And some of them really got into policies also, like Favipiravir got into policy. But ultimately the cortisone was the one which was used, and some unconventional, then the controversy with the hydroxychloroquine. And then of course some benefits of ivermectin and no benefits of tocilizumab and other anti-inflammatories. So there was a plethora of things which confused people around.
Yep.
One of the worst things which happened in the COVID era was that the normal healthcare collapsed. We really couldn't handle the infrastructure needs, and the normal healthcare really collapsed. And there were huge imbalances which were seen around the world. The imbalances were there that some countries got vaccine, some countries didn't get vaccine. And even those who got vaccine, they cried that there is not enough supplies. And some countries use Chinese or Russian vaccines, like Serbia. It used and it said, don't talk politics, we need vaccine and we will use vaccine. And the use of vaccine was also very calibrated by different countries. And some countries, even though they didn't have a vaccine, they didn't produce vaccine, benefited from smart choices which their regulatory other bodies made. And some countries who have vaccine, they may or may not have really benefited that much. Like there was production in Europe. Europe has tremendous vaccine shortage. There was production in United States. There was a shortage. Russians and Chinese used their own vaccine very quickly. India only had one own vaccine, and that also hadn't completed trial. It had only one vaccine which was under license from AstraZeneca. Okay, and we have to, if we need to reach 70% penetration, we need to deliver 600 million doses. So at least 1.2 billion, 600 million injections in the arm. So 1.2 doses on the 600 million people. We have only thought about 300 million people at this given moment, and gradually crawling towards that. We are very happy that we are one of the best users around the world. But what you could really know that whether we need to put in a matrix on basis of population, on basis of effectiveness, on basis of reach, or on basis of reaching the most vulnerable and the poor. Most vulnerable and the poor, most vulnerable are the aged people, whether they are morbid and comorbid, or whether they have comorbidity or not. And the other things which are very important, that reaching the poor, the poorest of poor. So that then we know that we have been successful. So finally we need to create models of opportunities for we are now talking of Make in India, or China is talking of Make in China, and looking at the global opportunities of providing appropriate goods which are needed around the globe. So and preserving our economy largely. So here that particular opportunity exists for us, and it will lead into job creation. It will lead into more availability of resources to those who need. And really creating a central policy of moving resources at the remotest point of healthcare, so that all those resources and primary healthcare survives, primary vaccination survives, primary neglected tropical disease intervention survive. The intervention in tuberculosis survive. The cancer care survives. So there are many challenges and opportunities. The countries, we have lot of different models around the globe. People have addressed that differently, and we need to see that what will be our best model. The other thing which we need to open up is somehow or other we need to take care of the journalists and the publications which are coming in the newspaper. What is happening with journalists, don't mind it. Now there are Medrex and open systems and New England Journal of Medicine and Lancet and other. Even it is available to grandmothers. So all young journalists like you are reading that and also reading at Reuters notes and others, and publishing articles every day with your banner and name, and creating so much noise and so much misinformation. If you really scratch it, this really comes out so loud that that I have stopped reading it. I don't know where you will publish it, but essentially that faith has gone. So we need to really, whereas we should not direct information, we should not direct journalism. Journalism sometimes brings out things which do not come back. Like when I was the ICMR chief, I used to know about fever cases and stuff, or the bird deaths and other for H5N1 and other from the journalists. That you knew it before you knew it from your surveillance systems. You knew it much more quicker. But then this should be handled with, but the basics, basic stories which need analysis and which are science based, which should be through people who understand, who can go back, who could analyze, and thereby create an opinion which will stand the test of the time. So the information barrage which has happened during the COVID-19 time was unprecedented. Some of it has benefited, some of it has spread more confusion. Like if you take AstraZeneca vaccine, if you are old, you may die. Or if you had large antibodies and others, if you get the second dose, you may die. And then WHO says that you are safe, you can take it. And then somebody says that instead of second dose in 28 days, you can take after 3 months also. Okay. So what a common person will do, the vaccine trust is very, very important. What they will do. And then when the SAEs are reported, they are reported from all corners of the world. And these SAEs need to really be critically analyzed, scientifically analyzed, should be gathered in a scientific fashion, and then only we can talk about, because when it goes to a larger population, only then you know the SAEs, because there are various ethnic models which are around, and they may respond differently to SAEs than normal models. So and we need to also, we have also learned that we need to act globally. The nationalism in these infection is very, very harmful. And we should not crow that we have done well, and should not gloat that we have done well or others. You may be visited with a surprise, and then you will not be able to really hide your face. So this is my take of this particular infection, which is little unconventional. But and you need to do, when you have limited resources or you are economically downturned, You need to do it in a very smart fashion. What will yield the desired results with the putting of very smart methods and tools of doing it. So,
sir, pretty thanks first of all for your detailed, factual and fact-based referendum speeches. Thank you very much for that. And now, your statement and your explanation is going to lead me to ask further 3-4 straightforward questions. So, if I've understood correctly, do you want to let me ask you first straight away, without any diplomacy? Do you think for the COVID-19? China should be blamed? Straight away question, or it has nothing to do with the country?
One of the things which happens, and that is the data sharing and information sharing. So we can't blame one country over the other, but we should really blame a country or put resources in a country if the country has been late to report. Because if you report immediately, the global resources could be channeled and to really contain the infection around the place. So, but there is a flip side to this, that previously we were putting up travel restrictions, trade restrictions, and other restrictions. Like when we had about 65 cases in India, and nobody will trade with us. No airplane will come, no ships will go, nobody will buy our things. Within a week, we lost $7.5 billion within a week. At that time, 13 other countries were also reporting plague, which were endemic around. So the same type of restrictions happen globally with the national advisories and other advisories. And so that is why people actually hide it from the other nations. But the only thing China has done with every pandemic which occurred and originated from there, that it was very late in reporting. It was very, and normally these spread from the wet markets. Like COVID-19, the theory, even now after WHO visit and others, is that it was bat and pangolin and then to humans. And now when the mutations are occur, human to human transmission has become more efficient with some of the mutants. So this is the normal course of there. And since a lot of these, like civet cat, like pangolins, the other eatable animals which are eaten, these are there in Chinese culture much more. They are more prone to, because they wild animal trading. If you really look at, most of these have come from the wild animals. Most of these whether it was Ebola, whether it was COVID-19, whether it was HIV infection, whether it is MERS, all of them, the origin is the wild animal, and some of them have been effectively spread through bats, because bats have a peculiar cyclic stage. They have a peculiar temperature capacity, and they stay in confined spaces many a time in a large number. So they excrete large number in certain environments, and then it starts jumping the species through the mutations which occur. So we need to have a global surveillance system which reports to each other without fear. And for that, we need to create a global environment that if you report, you will not be ostracized. The total global community will come together to your help, and you could provide access to them. You should not be bitten by nationalism that no, these foreigners should not come to our shore to help us. Every one of us need help in such situation.
Sure. And sir, from your experience and from your evaluation and assessment, if I would like to ask you that, do you find any COVID-19 model tackler country? Do you want to call someone as a model country who has been successfully tackled COVID-19? Do you like to follow a certain country?
I will take the example of South Korea and Taiwan.
Mm.
They were the South Korea, North Korea is very close to each other. North Korea, China is very close to each other. People move from one place to other. And the Taiwan is the same fashion. China, Taiwan interaction. Even Hong Kong, there were agitations going on. These guys did it very, very quickly. How did they do it? They created their own diagnostics much quicker than others. China, South Korea, and Taiwan, they did their diagnostic. They almost tested the entire population through that, and they tracked every infection. Every infection they tracked, and they through that they could treat people who really needed it. They also created infrastructure in their places, and that they could keep their economies open some or other. One will say that New Zealand may be the best country. I will not agree with that, because New Zealand is a small island country. Yes. It could shut it off, and it could then do appropriate isolation and other. The same with the Australia. So it puts on quarantine everyone who is entering, and it's again can go into isolation. Many other countries don't have those luxuries. So I think these are the countries which did well. Israel also did very well, if I may be able to identify. It had a Palestinian population within itself, which they didn't care. So sometimes sometimes there were outbreaks, but essentially it also did quite well, and was able to vaccinate most of its, about 20 or more of its percent of population. It could quickly vaccinate.
Sir, I mean, sometimes again, back to the journalism and publication industry, people often say that we cannot fight against pandemic or any pandemic without the engagement of political leaders. Do you think that there should be a very good correlation between political leadership and healthcare leadership group of people, so that whatever the things are instructed from the healthcare management perspective, it can be implemented to the grassroots level?
There was Puerto Rican Vice President Anna Fleischer's. There was a triangle. So knowledge is generated at the top of the triangle. So then you have to manage the knowledge, and translate the knowledge. However, knowledge doesn't get translated and doesn't go to communities if you don't engage the communities through behavioral social scientists and other scientists who could change the behavior, who could reach to communities, provide appropriate messages, and then the political leadership works. Sometimes it happens reverse. The political leadership takes the leading role. And then communities may not believe that. It may believe that, a section of it may believe that, but section of the others who have other political leaning will start to resist that. So we need to empower our communities. We need to empower scientists who are not in the government anymore, who are not seeking a job or award or anything, but who were very, very capable. So empowering the communities, empowering the civil societies, empowering the scientific group which are not beneficiaries of the munificence, empowering them, listening to their voice, coordinating those voices, analyzing those voices to really reach some kind of a meaning and consensus is very, very useful and important. but it cannot be one side directed. The trust doesn't come, and sometimes these people who really are empowered, they may not be scientists. Like some of the major public health groups are the town planners who create rapid transit system, who create the water resources so that you could maintain hygiene and other thing. The people who can create beautiful movies which could move people. The musicians, these are the people who could really reach people very, very effectively. And if they carry a message, and if they create documentation based on appropriate help, these could reach to communities, because many times the communities don't understand your language, and communities need to know that they are benefiting. If they don't see any benefit, then if they lose job, if you stick a sticker in front of their home that this home has got COVID, so they cannot eat, they cannot go out. If they feel sick, they don't know how to get the care. So what they will do at that given moment, that they will hide it. They will, even if they got fever or they have got symptom and they are young, they will self-medicate, because you can buy any medicine anywhere except in some countries, and will not tell. So you will never know. So essentially, we need to empower communities, we need to remove stigma, and we need environment where people will really come back to you that, well, I have this problem, please help us. And there need to be money in these conditions, which should be reaching you if you have got out of the job, because you have to take care of your children's schooling, you have to eat. So the food banks, the money subsidies, as well as creation of jobs will be important if you really want to control this.
Yeah, that's true. We need to really engage the grassroots people community, undoubtedly. Sir, almost we're end of our show, but I'm just having two more last questions. And if you allow me now, I would like to go through the critical one, which is vaccine politics or vaccine commercialization. There's some tendency from the different scholar groups or critics group, they're saying that some of the countries are now making vaccine as a nationalist item, and also some of the countries claiming that they are very much engaged in commercialization. For example, you know very well about the population of India, and you know the demand and the need of vaccination number for Indian population, whereas if I just utter the name Serum Institute, they've got the responsibility for the AstraZeneca, you know, the vaccine production, and they're producing, but not only supplying to India, but also they're supplying some of the countries, which is appreciated by those countries, but not so much warmly accepted, might not be accepted by a lot of Indians. Would you like to say regarding this, is it fair to share, or you think we should protect us first?
Actually, one major thing comes with vaccine, that if a country is in a throes of huge number of deaths and do not need to vaccinate 70% of the population, and its entire production is not sufficient for that, it doesn't know when it will be able to do it, and it has a timeline, it is natural for that country to be protective and not allow the vaccine to go out. But so America has booked almost entire of its production at its production site. So but at some point it needs to allow vaccine to other countries. If it is not able to send vaccine to other countries, it will revisit the South African strain come, Brazilian strain will come, and
Yeah.
the British strain is taking roots. So you go to the drawing board. So while you are immunizing your countries, you will need to look at the global needs and contribute to Gavi and others with certain percentage of vaccine, so that the Gavi countries, the COVAX program, where the Gavi countries are Gavi is providing to member countries 20% of its need. We need to look at such models. Then there is a European model. The European model is, there are European vaccine producers, but some or other they didn't build up their capacity to an extent that they can cover the entire Europe. So there was a vaccine shortage in Europe, and they were hesitant to use Chinese vaccine and Sputnik vaccine because there was a lack of transparency in the regulation, and the people couldn't really trust the data, so it didn't come. Then there are countries who didn't have any vaccine, and they didn't know from where to get these vaccines. So they started using Chinese and Russian vaccine, okay, which was readily available, which was over capacity, and they started using it, and some or other they fared quite well because whatever is the vaccine, it works at more than 50% of its capacity, and since they have gone to millions of Chinese and Russians already, you know little bit of their essays. So this was another group, Serbia, etc., UAE and other. They didn't have vaccine. They didn't know where to access. They got it. Then the countries like India, who has a huge vaccine production capacity, because previously there used to be 36 major vaccine companies. They were not making profit. So they contracted, and there remained 6 to 8 vaccine companies, biggies around the world. So India occupied that space, and the ordinary vaccines which were not costing high, it was supplying to the world. So 80% of the measles vaccine, the entire need initially of rubella vaccine in South America, meningococcal vaccine for Africa, it really created capacities. So many of the other vaccine manufacturers have come to India as a licensing for the production of vaccine, and so India theoretically could provide vaccine around the globe. It is not only this, like Johnson & Johnson's vaccine is being made by BioE, Sputnik is being made by Reddy's lab, and the AstraZeneca, the Novavax is being made again by Serum Institute in their Czechoslovakian plant, and Aurobindo is also making a COVAX, VAAX, and then we have the Zydus vaccine, and we have the Bharat Biotech vaccine. But we have the Genova vaccine, messenger RNA vaccine, which is coming up. But here we need to really look at our regulatory capacities and standards. They should be world class. If we don't have it, we should use the global expertise in doing it with a great neutrality. And so that all the global rules of vaccine releases are followed, so that the vaccines which we are making are automatically used by the global players without any hesitation. And so that is something which we need to do. But Indian model is a very viable model of vaccine manufacturing, because we have over capacities of production, which many others don't have, because economically they can't sustain an overproduction plant If it is not being used, suddenly you need to get millions of things. So they will be put in place. It takes 8 months to 10 months to certify the space and other. But Indian vaccine manufacturers had overcapacity, which was unutilized capacity. So they can fill a void, and provided they create world-class, undisputable regulatory capacity and matrix.
Sounds good. Sir, what do you think? When are we going to say goodbye to this COVID? Do you have any prediction? Do you have something optimistic thought? Or you think it will stay with us forever?
Actually, with the vaccination drives which we have taken, in 2 years' time, it will be like influenza viruses. It will remain. About 7 COVID strains are circulating in humans. Few of them come out like this, which becomes very highly transmissible. Mutations will happen. Some of the platforms can quickly create a second generation or third generation. Like messenger RNAs very quickly can be expanded, can be tweaked to cover those mutations. It will, and these are plug-on facilities, will provide huge number of things. The same is some of the known platforms. You have just to put in that tweak, that particular clone. You should go on preparing and quickly do it. But then we need a real good regulatory system of doing that. So we may need a boost. Or like influenza vaccine, we need to immunize every 2 years or so before the season. But we need to set up a very strong surveillance network, both in animals and humans, not only in humans, both in animals and humans. We should share the data with each other. We should have global, strengthen the global capacity to analyze those data and find meaning out of that, do appropriate modeling, so that we could juxtapose it with the different places and how it is moving, and how it is moving with the aviation and passenger and other. And we will have to work slightly differently than we were working before. Whether we are eating, whether we are traveling, whether we are working, or whether we are doing meetings and webinars, things are going to change. And we should be able to select the best models for our societies and communities. But ultimately, if we are not able to build up the economy for the poor, poorest of poor in our country, the vulnerability will remain many, many fold. So we should also attack poverty and create jobs. If we don't do that, you can't tell them that behave responsibly, do this or do that. They have, their main aim is to put their bread on the plate of the children, or how to send the children to school, or even how to see that what they will do tomorrow. So these guys, you can't really extort to do this. So apart from this pandemic and preparedness for infectious disease others, we should do some social engineering, find out methods of creation of jobs and economy, and good behavioral scientists and others, so that they are not alienated. They could remove stigma, make them responsible, so they come forward and they listen to some of the basic needs. Don't make humans into rats or something, that they will remain in their cages. Don't go to inhuman social distancing. The people will commit suicide. People will have post-traumatic psychotic things. The humans are social creatures. They need to be socially interacting. Create methods so that they could socially interact.
True.
Try to open up methods to open up schools and universities and colleges. Try to open up the travels safely. Try to take care of the migrant workers or a distant population, and also try to see that the social network which operates by itself is strengthened, and let people speak, even if they're speaking nonsense. Let people speak, but ultimately create communications which people could trust and people could live with, and reduce noise as much as possible, which includes you also.
Thank you.
And me also.
So, last question. How's your experience today with the Channel 20? How did you feel? Are you feeling better to express yourself for the large number of people? How do you feel? What's your experience with us?
I'm nearly 80-year-old, okay? And I'm still active. I'm still working from morning 8 to 9. I have got the first shot of the vaccine. We'll get the second shot of vaccine very quickly. Nobody really muzzles me to speak when I speak freely, but responsibly. I don't criticize anybody for criticism's sake, but ultimately feel responsible because of so many years we have almost seen all. Okay, history is one of the major teacher, but anyone who is not a history teacher, history student, ultimately creates mistakes. So one of our advantage is this, that we could join the dots of what happened and what we did and what happened and what we did and how we need to go. So as far as I'm concerned, I'm optimistic. I'm proud of what our government has done, and I told what it should have done, and what global communities would have done, and so I'm good. I'm okay. Nobody is muzzling me. Nobody is punishing me. Nobody is harassing me. So I'm okay.
That's true. Thank you, sir. And with your note, we'd like to end up our show here. That means the summary of your speech is we need to work together unitedly, without any ego, without any personal interest, but the greater interest for the world community, as you said. We are protected doesn't mean that we can remain protected all the time until and unless everyone gets protected as well. So that's why we need to share and we need to care.